Today we're kicking off a brand new series called Chase the Lion. It's loosely based on a book that was written a while ago, and now there's a sequel out by the same title. The original book was called In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. I know, long title. I guess he didn't have a real good editor at that point. But the book sold like crazy. It was a fantastic book. He's now got a new one called Chase the Lion. And it's all about what we need to do as a church, as Christians, as humans, and that's to chase the dreams that we've got. Now, one of the problems that we have today is that people don't dream anymore. Or when they do dream, they don't execute. They're scared. They don't think it's going to happen. They don't think that God can really fulfill what's in their heart. And I think what we've got to do, guys, if we're a man, we need to stand up and say, you know what? I'm going to chase the dream and be the best husband I can be. I'm going to be a great father. I'm going to be a great role model to kids. This is what I want to do. Wives, we're going to say, you know what? I'm going to be the best wife I can. And we're not going to live under excuses anymore. That says, well, I can't do it because of this. And listen, I was raised my mom was married 6 times before I was 16. 6 times. I've jokingly told her, you leased men like you lease a car. Like every couple years, you're just trading it in for another model. And I love her to death, but I didn't exactly have the greatest role model or what to look up to. Like, okay, do I get a new wife every 2 years? Is that the way this works? Because that's going to be kind of fun, I guess. It's like dating with a short-term window. And Brenda's probably going to kill me right now. Thankfully, I can't see her. I hope she's not in here. Maybe she's outside. Oh, Lord. And so, you know, and that's what it was. So I had to figure out, okay, I have every excuse to not be a good husband. It wasn't shown to me. I don't know how to do it. There's no textbook for how to be a great husband. We have to learn. And so I could live under the excuse of I'm not going to be a good husband. Or I say, you know, I'm going to chase that dream. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a little passage of the Old Testament. And see, there's so many great things about the Old Testament that we don't get into. People don't like to read the Old Testament and think it's boring. Okay, let me be honest. This is your pastor talking. Yes, there are parts of the Old Testament that's boring. Like no one goes, I'm looking for something exciting today. I'm going to read the book of Numbers. Like no one does that. Well, maybe. If you do, man, you're a different kind of person. That's awesome. But there are certain parts of the Bible that are just kind of like, eh. But what happens is we miss the little nuggets. We miss the little pieces of the scripture that can really change. Like this whole story about this guy jumping in with a lion. Let me read it to you. It's in 2 Samuel chapter 23. And this is one of David's men. Okay, David, when he was chased out of his kingdom by Saul, and he was taken out, and they're going to try to kill him. So he goes to this cave where he's just going to live and kind of hide in secrecy. And these men surround him. They're like, no, we're not going to let you just live in this cave. We're coming out of this cave. And when we come out of this cave, we're going to do something great. We might have gone in the cave one way. We're coming out of the cave another way. And so they go in, they're like, no. And so these guys were called David's mighty men. They were like these guys. And it's amazing some of the stories you can read in the Old Testament that you don't even know are there. But there's this one guy in particular. Chapter 23, beginning in verse 30. There was also Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a valiant warrior from Casbel. He did many heroic deeds, which included killing 2 of Moab's mightiest warriors. Now, let me make sure you understand. Moab's warriors were gigantic. These were big dudes. Killed 2 of them. Another time, he chased a lion down into a pit. Then, despite the snow and slippery ground, he caught the lion and killed it. Another time, armed only with a club, he killed a great Egyptian warrior who was armed with a spear. Benaiah wrenched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with it. These are some of the deeds that made Benaiah almost as famous as the 3. There's 3 guys that were like David's right-hand men. He was more honored than the other members of the 30, though he was not one of the 3. And David made him commander of his bodyguard. Okay, let's just, like this is something like you would see in a movie. Let's just stop for a minute and put this into a real-life situation. This guy's been an underdog his whole life, and he keeps winning. He comes against 2 dudes that are much bigger than him, warriors. He's like, I don't care. I'm taking you out. Why? Because his faith was grounded in God, because God had said, take care of David. And so he's like, okay, I got God behind me. So he takes these 2 dudes on. He's like, come on, let's go. Steven Seagal kind of stuff. I don't know, Jackie Chan. Whatever he did, he whooped them. 2 dudes. Think about the next thing. I'm just going to be real. If I'm just walking around on a snowy day, just hanging out, snow's everywhere. I don't know what I'm doing out in the snow because I hate cold weather. But I'm out there for whatever reason, I'm in the snow, and I see a lion. Lion just hanging out over there. I promise you, the last thing I'm going to do is chase the lion. I'll be running the other way. I will run and scream and holler, we're gone. This guy's like, I'm taking that lion out. Like, this guy might not be all there. He's like, I'm taking this dude. So he chases the lion. Well, the lion must have known something because the lion ran. So the lion's like, whoa, this dude's crazy. He's coming after me. I don't know what's wrong with him. I'm going to run this way. And so the lion takes off running and falls into a hole. Now, if I'm dumb enough to chase a lion and the lion goes in the hole, I'm going to be like, whew, now I'm going to mess with the lion anymore. The lion's in a hole. He can't get out. I'm safe now. What does this guy do? He's like, you know what? You ain't going to run from me. He jumps into the lion's den. He jumps down there with it. It's snowy, slippery. He doesn't have good ground. And he kills the lion. Now, I know there's a lot of people going to be like, why do you have to kill the lion? The lion wasn't doing anything. I don't know, but it's the Bible. He just killed the lion for whatever reason. I don't know. The guy can't be all there. Think about this. And then he's got an Egyptian guy. And Egyptians were kind of bullies. Okay, they were kind of bullies. So this is like one of those, like, I know, I watch them, like on YouTube when like a kid tries to bully another kid and like the little kid like sticks him, and that makes me laugh. I'm like, that's what the bully gets. The bully shouldn't be bullying people. So here comes the Egyptian. He's got a spear. He says, I'll bully this guy up a little bit. So he comes in with his spear. Here he comes. Here I go. The guy's like, give me that spear. And he stabs him with it. Like, think about this. This guy is not afraid of anything. Nothing. So my question is this. How would you live if you weren't afraid of anything? How would you live? What would you live if you knew, like when we were kids, we all thought we were going to live forever, okay? We did more, no, I shouldn't say we. I'm going to put this on me. I did a lot of dumb things as a kid, okay? I would be on top of like a roof and say, I bet I can jump in that pool. Who does that? This guy. So what do? We jump off the roof. As an adult, I'm like, I'm not even getting on the roof. Like, I'm much less trying to jump into a pool. See how far we can do this. Hey, I got an idea. Again, we're from Kentucky, so we don't do the smartest things in the world. Hey, let's tie a rope to that tree and swing out into the lake and see if we can make it. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. But we did these crazy things because we didn't care. What would life look like? Like, what would your dream be if you like, I'm not going to fail? Like, I'm not going to let this lion get away. What's your lion? What are you going to chase down and say, I'm not going to stop until you give it to me? What's the enemy in front of you doing? Grab his spear and stab him with it. Not literally. Like, don't do that. We have enough problem in our country right now, people getting killed. Let's not do any of that kind of stuff. But what would you do? Like, how would you live? Here's what I've learned. If you're going to chase your lion, first thing you need to know, normal people don't chase lions. That's not a normal thought. I remember a video I watched one time, and it was a guy, and he was in Florida. You might have seen it. He was in khaki pants and a white golf shirt, okay? Probably 50 years old, and there was a gigantic gator in his backyard in like a creek. Well, this guy, who'd evidently seen the crocodile hunter one too many times, decides he's going to catch this gator, this big gator. And you might have seen the video. It was viral for a long time. So he does like they do on the TV, and he throws a shirt over its head, right? He's like, that's going to work, like it's a magic blanket, okay? So he throws it on, and then he jumps on this gator. By the time he barely touches that gator turned around and bit him and slung him around like, what are you doing? Okay? That guy's not normal. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. But normal people don't chase lions. If you're going to be a dream chaser, if you're going to go after that thing God wants, you're not normal. Because normal people are scared. They're not scared. So what made this guy so crazy? He single-handedly killed two of Moab's mightiest men, chased down a lion and killed it, killed an Egyptian. So what does David do? He goes, you're my bodyguard. You're in charge of all my bodyguards. I think that's a pretty good call. I mean, this guy has obviously proven that he's going to chase down whatever it is that he wants to do for whatever reason and do it. The guy becomes legendary. He becomes famous. He's the point of a books and series. And all that he did made him a legend for one thing, for God. He made the Bible. Like, that's a pretty good deal. Like, that's pretty big if you make it in the Scripture. He became this amazing man that all of a sudden chased his dreams or chased whatever it was that he wanted and became to get promoted. How would you live if you weren't afraid to chase your dream? Here's your big idea. One big thing for today. The only way to tap your God-given potential is to chase a 500-pound lion. The only way to do it. The only way you're going to tap into your God-given potential is to chase a 500-pound lion. Not literally. It's a metaphor for life, for your dreams. See, it wasn't it wasn't like a cub, okay? It wasn't like he was like, oh, look at the little bit, and stomped. It wasn't like that. It was a big lion, okay? He chased it down. See, if you say, well, I've got this dream, and the dream is I'm going to make it through church service without falling asleep. Well, that's a good dream, but you need to dream bigger and wake up. Okay? You need to dream bigger. I jokingly, on Wednesday, I was working at the restaurant, and I don't know what happened, but I passed out. Okay? So I was talking to someone, and the next thing I know, I'm on the floor. And I woke up, and they're staring at me and screaming, and they call Brenda, and Brenda comes to pick me up. Okay? So the next day, one of the servers comes up. She's like, Ben, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. And she's like, well, I hope you make it today. I'm like, well, here's my goal. My goal for the day is not to pass out. Okay? That was the joke that I made because that should be an easy goal to fulfill. That's not a 500-pound lion. What's the big dream? What's the goal that you've got? And if you say to me, I don't have one, then it's time we have a dream session. What would you do if you didn't know, if you knew you were never going to fail? What would it look like? So how do we do it? One, we're going to listen to God's voice at all times. I believe one of the biggest problems that we face today in our country is there's too many voices. And I'll give you a small rant. If someone posts their opinion on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is, fill in the blank. If person posts opinion on said site, does not make it fact. Let me let you in on a secret. There are some people on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, blah, 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 that are not the most intelligent people on the planet. Let's put it that way. If they say, I believe, and fill in the blank, that's fine. But that's not your fact. You don't have to let that be your fact. I believe all adopted kids are never going to make it in society. Are you nuts? No, we're not going to put that. I made one comment about the president this week. I will never make another political comment, I don't think, ever again. I had more messages and Facebook messages and texts, and I can't believe you would say that. I'm like, oh, well, what's my opinion? It's not a fact. So we have to look at this whole thing and say, what voices do we need to shut out? I think I told my wife this past week, I said, I think I'm just done with Facebook. I know it has to be there, and I get it. It's culture. But there's too many voices. There's too many. And listen, I'm not talking about the ones that, like, the people that live in your eyebrow voices. Like, if that's you, you're just crazy. And so that's a whole nother level. But I'm talking about, like, society and culture. There's actually studies out right now that the newest form of atheism or newest form of that is not just saying there is no God or I don't believe in God, but the actual report that's coming out from these agencies are saying, and if you do believe in God, that's evil. So it's gone from, we don't believe in God, okay, fine, don't, no big deal. But if you do, you're evil. Okay, that's your opinion, not a fact. But that's a voice. And we have ABC News and Fox News and MSNBC and our friends and our coworkers and all of these things. And sometimes God's going, hey, just listen to me. I see more people chase the wrong dreams because they're somebody else's dreams. They whisper in their ear, you know what? You could do better than that guy. I think you should go do it. I think you should go do it. And so you know what they do? They step out of their lane. They become the head coach at the University of Kentucky and lose every game that they play. I know. Or LSU or whatever team that you don't like your coach right now. I don't like any Kentucky football coach ever. Yesterday they said on game day Kentucky has the worst defense in the history of college football. You know how it made me feel? Terrible. So whatever. That's a whole other situation all itself. So I dream of the day that Kentucky is relevant. I dream of that. The best thing about Kentucky football is that basketball is almost here. Like, that's the best thing that could possibly happen right now. But you got these voices always, and what ended up happening, I don't know for a fact, but Kentucky came out yesterday and they won. They played really good. The defense looked great. Maybe they heard that voice that said, you're the worst in the history of college football, and said, well, watch this. Well, maybe the voice you need to listen to is the one that's saying, you don't know how to be a good wife. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to honor your husband. Or you don't know how to be a good husband. You don't know how to be a good friend. You don't know how to be a good parent. Your parents were terrible to you, so you're going to be terrible to you. That's the voice that you need to go, you know what, let me show you something. Bow up. Get real with it. But we got to figure out what voices that we need to stop listening to be able to move on. But see, here's the next thing. Some of those voices want you to be average. I love the commercial that my wife pointed out that says we don't call it the OK Canyon. It's the Grand Canyon. We don't settle for average. My wife and I have been talking a lot about this whole average thing. Are we just being good enough? With our staff, we talk about it all the time. I don't want to be good enough. Good is the enemy of great. If you're good enough, you'll never be great. If your dreams are just good enough, they're never going to be great. If you're just going to try to get through life, you're never going to change the world. Do I think we can change the world? Yes. 100% convinced of that. We've already changed some people's worlds. And we're going to keep doing it. See, the average thing is that it's all in our society right now. No one's big on anything. See, this guy wasn't average by any means. He was maybe a little crazy, but he wasn't average. Here's what I think. Here's some areas you cannot be average in if you want to go after this 500-pound lion. Your character. You can't be average with your character. In a world that lacks integrity, you got to be above board. Your character has to be flawless. Conviction. You can't be average about your conviction. If you're going to do something great, you got to be angry enough at the issue that you're going to change it. We're not going to let homeless children live in Bay County. That's not going to happen. So we're going to fix it. We're not going to let homeless kids go hungry during spring break. That got us mad, that made us passionate, that gave us conviction. We're going to fix it. We're going to feed all those kids. And we did for the last 3 years. Hundreds or thousands of meals. If you weren't here, we basically turned this place into a food warehouse of ramen noodles and granola bars. But they ate. You can't be average with your values. Listen, we're in a political time. It's going to get worse. I know that there's Trump people in here and there's Clinton people in here. That's fine. Whatever you want to do, be with your values. We can't be average with our values. They've got to be what drives us. And competence. Can't be average when it comes to competence. We got to be great at it. Listen, if you're not great at something, stay in your lane. If you're really, really great at raising funds for nonprofits, do that. But if you're really terrible at managing the money, don't do that. Raise it, let somebody else know where to put it. But in this world we live in where average is just okay, I mean, we've got schools that don't give tests anymore. We just read an article just this past week where there's schools that don't give tests because they don't want to hurt anybody's precious little feelings. Guess what life is like? Nothing like that. And so we're preparing. We're parenting our kids right now we're in a unique space with my oldest because she now has a job, she's driving a car, and we said, here's the deal. We're going to teach you what bills are like. So she's going to pay half of her car insurance. Well, all of our checking accounts are all tied in, so we can transfer money wherever we need to transfer money. And she came to her mom, and she's like, Mom, it's time for me to make my insurance payment. I want you to make the insurance payment. And she was mature enough to go, you know what? I use too much data, and it caused us to go over. I want to pay for that too. Can you transfer this much money out of my account into your account? Do we need her half of the car payment? No. What are we doing? We're going to let that kid learn what it's like to pay bills at the age of 16, so when she goes on to life and goes into college, it doesn't slap her in the face with reality. She's going to understand okay, on this day I have to have this much money raised. So when she works, she puts it aside. She puts aside her tithe. And so that's parenting. And my wife was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take her money. I'm like, you're not taking her money. You're teaching her a lesson. We don't want her to be average. I'm not going to allow her to be average. If she's 18 and she's average, she's grounded. Grounded till you become better than average. You get in your room and figure it out. I'm not going to let her be average. I'm not going to let our church be average. Because average things don't change anything. They just allow status quo to happen. So how do we have these God-sized dreams? How do we do it? Well, one, I think you have to have a kingdom team mentality. So if we're thinking about the kingdom of God and how we're going to make this thing work, we have to have a team mentality. What I'm doing is not for me, it's for the team. It's for the kingdom. Many of you know I coach basketball at Arnold. And one of the things we're trying to teach our guys is you got to sacrifice the I for the team. You got to get rid of the me. It's got to be about the we. We can't just want to do what we want to do. It's got to be, what do I do to make my team better? And the moment that happens, they won't get beat. No team does. But it's when we start playing like individuals. And here's how you know you're playing like an individual, not like a kingdom mentality. I'm not going to church today because I don't like the new songs they're playing. Oh, I know. Some of y'all are like, I can't believe you just talked about me. Love you. I don't like this because, and we fill in the blank. Because what we try to do is say, how do I make the church all about what I like? Well, the church is all about trying to help those who don't know what life is like. You're a part of that. You're the biggest part of our church. You're bigger than me. See, when I tell someone about Jesus, they go, yeah, but you're the pastor. So they just blow it off. When you tell someone, it's like, oh. It's just like if you've ever parented your child and you've said 1,000,000 times, don't touch a hot stove. And they touch a hot stove. You're like, I just told you not to do that. Or you tell them over and over, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. If you do this, what's going to happen. And they don't listen. And then some other person will come along and say the exact same thing, and the child will go, oh, really? I never thought about that. And you will be like, what? I've just been telling you that your whole life. What do you mean? It's a different voice. It takes a team. So if your kingdom mentality is, I'm going to do whatever I got to do on this Sunday to make someone's life better, you're part of the team. A kingdom life personality. I'm going to focus on living for Christ with the right attitude. Let me let you in on a secret. Bad things are going to happen. Horrible things are happening in our country. Whether it's whatever hot topic you want to bring up. You can't control some of that. You control how you react. You control what your attitude is. There are some times, true story, this past week at the restaurant. True story. I was busy, running the line. Hey, you, do this, boom, 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 boom. And a lady walks up to my station. First of all, don't walk up there. I'm busy. Like, I don't have time to talk. She says, sir, now you have to stop because you're an open kitchen, so you have to stop. Yes, ma'am, what can I do for you? Well, I asked the server to do something for me, and she said you couldn't do it, and I just want to make sure she wasn't lying. Now, before I go Gordon Ramsay on this lady and throw her out of the kitchen, I'm like, ma'am, what can I do for you? She's like, I want pomodoro sauce, which is tomato sauce, basic red sauce, but I want you to pull the garlic out. Exactly. I was like, ma'am, I can't do that. She's like, well, I thought everything was fresh cooked to order. You could just leave the garlic out. I'm like, we do fresh cooked to order. We cooked it this morning. It takes 5 hours. You want to wait 5 hours for dinner? Come back tomorrow. I'll have you some pomodoro sauce with no garlic. Come on now. Now, I could have just laid into this lady and been like, you're an idiot. But I didn't. I said, listen, ma'am, I'm really sorry. We do fresh cook everything. My choice was to have the right kind of attitude. That's what we're going to have. You're going to be faced with these people that are going to make you crazy. What's your attitude? How's it going to be? As a player on this team, you have to know who's the most important. If you think you're the most important, you violated the rules because the team never has that. Who's the most important person in this church? Probably some volunteers. It's not me. My staff that I surround myself, they are smarter than me in a lot of areas. Why do I surround myself with them? Because I know that they're smarter than me. And if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I've put the wrong team together. That's the way I look at it. As a coaching staff, when we sit around and talk about coaches, we all have our different things. In a restaurant, we all have different unique strengths, but we have to all come together and know, hey, I'm not the most important. If that guy fails, I'm going to fail. If this guy fails, I'm going to fail. If this guy doesn't do his job on the court, this guy's going to fail. We've got to have that kind of mentality. Let me close up this morning. And I want to close up because I want to talk about life and how we're going to move forward. Because the reality is, as we chase these dreams, we're going to have a lot of opportunity to have excuses as to why we can't do them. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not good looking enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have the right connect. You're going to have plenty of times to do that. So what I've written, or not written, is there's a book called Dumbing Down Our Kids by Charles Sykes. He wrote 10 rules that people going into adulthood and chasing big dreams have to learn. I'm going to read these rules to you, and we'll get out of here. Rule number 1, life is not fair. Get used to it. Rule number 2, the world won't care about your self-esteem. The world will expect you to accomplish something before you feel good about yourself. Rule number 3, you will not make $40,000 a year right out of high school. You won't be vice president with a cell phone until you can earn both. Number 4, if you think your teacher is tough, wait till you get a boss. He doesn't have a tenure. Flipping burgers is not beneath your dignity. Your grandparents had a different word for burger flipping. They called it opportunity. Rule number 6, if you mess up, it's not your parents' fault, so don't whine about your mistakes. Learn from them. This guy's got it figured out. Rule number 7, before you were born, your parents weren't as boring as they are now. They got that way from paying your bills, cleaning clothes, and listening to you talk about how cool you are. So before you save the rainforest from the parasites of your parents' generation, try delousing the closet in your own room. Right on. I hope my Mackenzie's listening to this right now. Rule number 8, your school may have done away with winners and losers, but life has not. In some schools, they have abolished failing grades. They give you as many times as you want to get the right answer. This doesn't bear the slightest resemblance to anything in real life. Rule number 9, life is not divided into semesters. You don't get summers off, and very few employers are interested in helping you find yourself. Do that on your own time. Rule number 10, television is not real life. Neither is social media. In real life, people actually have to leave the coffee shop and go to jobs. And final rule he wrote, be nice to nerds. Chances are you'll end up working for one. Listen, rules of life that we have and the rules that the scripture tells us to live by will not prevent you from chasing the lion. It will enable you. It will position you in a place to be successful. You're going to have opposition. No great dream has ever been accomplished without opposition because Satan doesn't want it to happen. And yes, Satan is a real person, not a sci-fi character. I want you to chase big dreams. And you know what? When you chase them, there's going to be times that you're going to fail. Look at some of the greatest inventors. Look at some of the biggest things. There's a book called Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. It's a great book. And he talks about how every great dream, every great invention, every great thing at one point had something that caused them to tip. And when that tip happened, but many times it was failure and failure and failure and failure and failure before the tip happened. Our spiritual life sometimes looks that exact same way. We fail and we fail and we fail and we fail until finally we click. And all of a sudden we go, I can do this. I can make it. I can be that husband. I can be that wife. I can be that Christ follower that I'm supposed to be. No matter what I've done in my past, no matter all that stuff that's happened, God is still in love with me. A song from the second song of the day, your love is fierce. What a great sentence. It means it's aggressive, it's passionate. That's what I want you to have. And if you need help, we will help you figure it out. Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father,